Hello everyone, my name is Sarah Latondra and this is my research proposal for NS 380. The topic I am exploring in my paper is the high rates of suicide found in the Canadian North, specifically in male youth. So my paper will explore suicide in the Canadian North, specifically in the Territories. Higher rates of suicide are found in these areas when compared to the rest of Canada. This paper will explore the reasons behind that, trying to uncover the circumstances leading to these higher rates of suicide, specifically in male youth. I will attempt to understand why this population is impacted at a higher rate than the rest of Canada. So far I have these research questions. I'm still working on refining these, but this is what I have for now. So the first one is, why are suicide rates so high in the North when compared to the rest of Canada? The second one is, what changes in their lifestyle may lead to these higher rates? And the third one is, why are higher rates seen in young males when compared to the rest of the population? So this is what I have for now, but I'm still working on refining these and making them a little more specific to the topic. So the empirical evidence I've explored so far includes one article and two journals. So the article explores the suicide rates in First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people in Canada. This article is important to include because it has some specific information focusing on the Inuit population. The first journal I have explores the suicide deaths and attempts reported in Canada. This is for all of Canada, but it has some specific sections mentioning how the suicide rates seen in the North may reflect the social, economic, and cultural factors of the population. And the second journal reports on the suicide rates in the Northwest Territories over 3 5-year time periods. These time periods are between the 1980s and 1990s. I thought that this source would be important to include in my research because it has stats of the suicide rates and attempts in the past, and I can compare this to the suicide rate and attempts of the future and the present. So the theoretical framework I'm going to use to this paper is the post-colonial theory. This is a body of thought that is concerned with the political, economic, historical, and social impacts of colonialism on the Indigenous population of Canada. This paper will explore the impacts of colonialism and what this has done to suicide rates in the North, specifically the social and historical impacts. I will also explore the idea of the other that is created through the post-colonial theory. So the thesis statement I have so far is colonization, the interruption of the transmission of culture, and the lack of access to mental health resources and facilities has contributed to the extremely high rate of suicide in the Indigenous population of the North, specifically in the male youth population. So I have my four sources that I included in my annotated bibliography. This is the first source, and it's titled Protective Factors in the Inuit Population of Nunavut, a comparative study of people who died by suicide, people who attempted suicide, and people who never attempted suicide. This study is attempting to uncover the reasons behind the extremely high rates of suicide. It suggests the reasons may be due to historical traumas that were transmitted across generations, the rise of colonization, and cultural confusion. It states that Indigenous people are connected to their culture and the land. The breakdown of the land and the environment has an effect on the well-being of communities, weakening the integrity of the community and individuals. This study also suggests some protective factors that could be put in place to lower the rates of suicide, and these protective factors would include promoting the concept of cultural continuity, knowledge of traditional languages, and on a social level, they suggest that individuals need strong ties to their family and friends. So the second source I've included is titled The Weight on Our Shoulders is Too Much and We Are Falling. Suicide among Inuit male youth in Nunavut, Canada. This study is trying to figure out some of the reasons why the rate might be so high. In this study, they have examined and evaluated suicide notes and letters that were discovered by the families of people who have committed suicide, and within these letters they found 4 common themes. The themes were youth romantic relationships, family problems, intergenerational segregation, and contagion. So they believe that these themes are tied to the higher rates of suicide. This study is useful for my research because it specifically focuses on the population I'm focusing on and gives me themes I can go off of. So my third source is titled Suicide Among Inuit, Results from a Large Epidemiological Representative Follow-Back Study in Nunavut, Canada. So this study is trying to determine how many subjects who were involved in the study had contemplated suicide, how many who had attempted suicide, and if they had, how many attempts they have made, and determine the number of people who did commit suicide. They found that the average age of the subjects who had these thoughts or committed suicide was 23.41 years old. The study reveals that the majority of individuals who are contemplating, attempting, or committing suicide are part of the youth population, and they believe both mental health and early life adversity are associated with death among Inuit youth. They also suggest some interventions that could be put in place to lower these rates, including prevention and intervention training, and the inclusion of more mental health facilities and resources in the North. The final article I've included is titled Isimagagi Chikaksak, Mindful of the State, Social Constructions of Inuit Suicide. So the English translation of Isumagagi Ijaksak is self-esteem. The researchers believe that the Inuit who commit suicide may be suffering from low self-esteem because of colonialism and the loss of their traditional ways. The traditional ways of the Inuit culture vary greatly from the traditional Canadian culture, and this can lead to a sense of confusion for Inuit people. So this research is suggesting that intergenerational communication and community action with a narrative research are needed to address the problem. The transmission of Inuit culture and inclusion of mental health resources in these communities may have a positive effect on lowering the suicide rates seen in the Canadian North. And that is my last source that is included in my research proposal. Thank you for watching and listening to this presentation, and now we have time for questions.